Good afternoon, Colorado. Good afternoon if you're listening outside of Colorado. This is another wonderful interview on K4CO Radio. I'm Josh, the president. Sitting here with Sarah, vice president. How's it going, Sarah?
Hi, it's good. Happy Tuesday, everyone.
And happy snow day. Finally.
Yes, so it's a whole bunch of things today. It's Giving Tuesday, which is great. Thank you for everyone who's participating. And it is snow day. So for all of you that have kiddos and going to work tomorrow, you might need to rethink your world. Just throwing that out there. I think we're due for a foot, 2 feet.
It is a different Colorado. I've said this many times before, and I'll say it again. When I was going to school here, it could have been 2 feet of snow. We're starting on time. I don't know, get here. And now it's like, oh, there's an inch. We're going to delay it 2 hours.
You know what? It's okay. I view it as I probably get to spend more time in my PJs, so I'm going to live it up.
There you go.
So there's always a
You have an
line.
understanding boss.
I do. Was that a long enough pause?
That was. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening on K4CO radio website or our K4CO radio apps, and you're driving, then just keep it there. But if you are not, you can switch over to our social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, all that fun stuff to see our shining faces. And do know that if you do have any questions, you can comment in our social media platforms, and our producer, Jacob, will alert me to that. So maybe we can get those answered for you. So, Sarah, who do we have in the wonderful K4CO studio?
Well, I'm excited for this one because I'm all about, number one, education and really bettering yourself in many different ways. Brain power, brain knowledge, brain education, all of it is super important. I need a whole bunch of it all the time. So I'm excited to just delve into this. So today, again, if you are watching us on social media, definitely follow along and please put in your comments and your questions. I'm going to give you the website as well. There's a lot of information to unpack there too. So we have Kathi Miracle. She is the owner of LearningRx, and they're located in Highlands Ranch. And the website is learningrx.com/Highlands-Ranch. And the phone number is 303-955-2959. And on top of that, I love it when we have guests that have actually gone through it with their testimonies.
That's right.
So Maddy Fauth is here as well.
Hey,
welcome,
guys.
ladies.
Thank you.
Hi.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you guys for being here. We travel in so many different circles. I love the South Metro area. It's like, oh, we all know each other from different areas of life. And so I love it when they all come together.
It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Kind of.
3 degrees of Colorado.
It is. Yeah. I like that. 3 degrees of Colorado.
That's right.
It's so true. Well, Kathi, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
So give us the general overview of LearningRx, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty.
And how you got into it, too.
And how I got into it. Okay, so LearningRx is a one-on-one brain training program. What we do is we identify the strengths and weaknesses of the brain, and then we customize a program to target the weaker skills and strengthen those so that learning is easier, thinking is faster, and memory is better. I got into this. I spent over 30 years working in senior living, and I specialized working with people with dementia and just worked with hundreds of families in cognitive decline. And when I found out you could strengthen cognitive skills at an earlier age, to avoid a dementia diagnosis or delay it, or in some circumstances reverse cognitive decline, I got super interested in it. And then I found LearningRx, and they worked with people of all ages. They didn't just work with dementia, they worked with brain injuries, autism, dyslexia, ADHD, learning disabilities, and was sort of a no-brainer to kind of jump in and start doing this. And it has produced so many positive results for people and changed so many lives.
Oh, I love that. And you mentioned a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And I'll get into the nitty gritty. I find this so fascinating. I mean, the brain especially, it's such an amazing organ. How does it do everything that it does?
Right.
Amongst everything else in the body. Is there an age that you start testing up until...
So my youngest student has been 6 years old
Wow.
at the Highlands Ranch Center, and my oldest student has been 82. LearningRx is the number one-on-one brain training in the world. They're located in 45 countries, and their world headquarters are in Colorado Springs, but their youngest student as a company has been 3 years old, and their oldest one has been 103.
Oh my gosh.
And
I
so
didn't realize it was it's all over the entire world. 45 countries?
45 countries. We jokingly say any brain at any age could benefit.
Okay. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So is this your typical, you put things on the head?
Oh, no. No, it's so funny. That's one of the first questions I get asked.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I'm like, are you going to stick something to my head? I'm like, oh, you've done neurofeedback. Yeah. So we do not stick anything to the head. We actually just bring people in and we do a brain skill assessment. And that takes, depending on the person, can take about 30 to 40 minutes. And it takes us a couple of days to get the results. And then we sit down and go through some education about the brain. We show them their results. We kind of make recommendations based on how many cognitive skills are below the 50th percentile. And so some programs might be 3 months, some programs might be 9 months. It just really depends on where our starting point is. But we go in and we customize, we create a program for that individual, and we're off and running and getting them going and stuff. So yeah, it's we run at the time of we do the brain skill assessment, we run people through some brain exercises so they get a feel, like, one, we're not sticking anything to your head, but two, they really we're also, for children, we're also not helping you with your math homework either. That's not what we do.
Can you?
No, well, no. No. And do I want to? No. But we really kind of showed them what the difference is. And so it's intense. When we first start training people, we can get through about 4 to 6 exercises in an hour. By the time someone's almost through with their program, we can typically get through 10 to 16 in an hour. So it's intense, it's fast, it's boom, 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 boom. It's not... It's well, you can speak to it.
Yeah, no,
I know, Maddy. You went through the whole program, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely. I really found Kathi, of course, through networking, and I had spent a while recognizing that I was struggling in areas. Being a business owner, the level that you have to be able to continue to grow into and operate in increases as your business grows and different things like that. And I really had noticed the auditory processing was the one thing that I was really struggling with. And I had reached out to my, primary care provider, and I was like, hey, I'll be honest, I didn't know what auditory processing issues were until I heard an NPR article about it, on the radio. And that's when I started doing some research. Well, we ended up getting connected, and full stop. It was just like, this is what I have been looking for. Between potentially, I can't say that it was 100% true, but I honestly believe that I had some, learning disabilities growing up, struggled with some potential dyslexia, things like that. Was very hands-on learner for most of my life. And then, extreme sports, snowboarding, my, semi-professional women's tackle football career didn't help in any sense either, as she's shaking her head, of course.
Yeah, you're not hit.
Shout out to the Mile High Blaze, but, I really, really was struggling from that perspective. And so being able to come into Kathi's program and have it be a low pressure situation, right? The assessment was fun. The post assessment was much more fun because I could see the changes, but where I was at, I had almost a 50-point increase on my auditory processing in the 8-month program that I went through with them. Okay. And, I've gotten feedback from my business partner. I've gotten feedback from, my life partner of, improvements that they've seen, not only just in my productivity, my focus. Lindsay really appreciates that I don't just say, anymore. I can actually understand what she's saying. But yeah, all around, it was an amazing program, and I'm super grateful for it.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I'm going to ask kind of questions, and I apologize.
No, go for it.
This is a little. This is just new for me. So you said you increased 50 points.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean in layman's terms?
Do you want
Well,
me to
I was going to say,
Okay.
you take a teach.
So when we look at the brain skill assessment, one of the pages on the report actually shows where each cognitive skill falls on a percentage graph. So when your children are growing up, you want to be at the 50th percentile for height. Half the kids are taller, half the kids are shorter, right? So 50 is average. It's the same thing with cognitive skills. So we see, and I'll tell you, age has nothing to do with it. I have people in their 70s who have stronger cognitive skills than people who are 17 or 20. So it's not really an age-related thing. It comes from genetics, it comes from environment, it comes from concussions, traumatic brain injuries. It comes from early stages of dementia. It depends. It depends. But when we look at that, and what she's talking about is Maddy. Are you okay if I discuss your scores? Okay.
Yeah, please.
So Maddy started at the 1 percentile in auditory processing.
And what is auditory processing?
So auditory processing is your brain's ability to capture whatever's being said and then process it and send it to the right part of the brain to then follow through, to remember it, to follow through on it. So anything the brain hears, the brain can't remember. The brain can't process it at all. And so if someone were to say to her, like let's say Lindsay says, "Hey, Maddy, I need you to pick up some milk on the way home." Maddy gets home and there's no milk, and she's like, "What do you, I told you." And she's like, "No, you didn't." "Yes, I did." "No, you didn't." Now it becomes an argument. Is that right?
Yeah, well, so specific example, Lynn's might be around the corner and she says, "Hey, can you grab that mat?" And I'm like, did she say mat? Did she say bat? Did she say pat? And by the time I'm able to identify the word in my brain of what she's looking for, she's already said 3 more sentences and I'm lost. Right? Which is a really big deal when, you're having a conversation with somebody, you're, discussing, their home or, in business or all sorts of different scenarios that it's applicable to. And so that was the biggest change for me.
So, I mean, for kids in school, the teacher gives them an assignment, tells them when it's due. They're never going to, no wonder there's missing assignments because they never did it. Or I'll tell parents, if you're telling your child, feed the dog, empty the dishwasher, and take out the trash, all they heard was feed the dog. And now you're in an argument because they never heard, you said it, they're telling you didn't, And so even as adults, especially when you run your own business, I mean, if a customer is telling you the problem and you're not hitting a deadline or you order the wrong part, I mean, it truly affects people in school and in work and in daily life when that specific cognitive skill isn't working the way it should.
I think everyone, I'm speaking from myself, has that level of retention. And then I can actually kind of feel when my brain gets just so saturated. It's like, oh, there's nothing else that's sticking today.
I might not be losing my hearing.
Right? I mean, it's like, because we all do. We have
and
a certain
in all
capacity.
honesty, that's true. There's a difference between our hearing mechanism and our auditory processing cognitive skill.
Right.
And so when people go to see an audiologist and they get hearing aids, all hearing aids are going to do is amplify the sound. So it comes in louder, but that doesn't mean the brain is processing it. It just means the sound's coming in louder. So I usually, if somebody says that they think they need hearing aids, I go, how about we do a brain scale assessment first before you go spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on hearing aids? Because I see a lot of people spend money on hearing aids and then they don't ever wear them. Well, the problem was never the hearing mechanism; it was the auditory processing or the auditory memory.
Right.
And so we know we can strengthen those skills. And would somebody still need hearing aids? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That's for an audiologist to really determine.
So for the assessment, when Maddy comes in or a client, so I'm picturing you're looking up at, are these squiggly lines? Is this a circle? Are these
Sorta.
visual? Are these things that people are writing down?
Both.
Is it both?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we have 6 different components to the brain skill assessment. Some of it's timed, so they have to do it quickly. We're looking at auditory processing, visual processing, auditory memory, visual memory, working memory, which is short-term memory. We're looking at attention, processing speed, logic, and reasoning. We're looking at all of those different cognitive skills to determine where is the challenge or where is somebody weak. I've had people who are very strong in attention or logic and reasoning, but they're very poor in auditory processing or auditory memory.
That's me. Yeah, I mean, being a lifetime athlete, right? I very much have leaned on those parts of my brain my entire life, which has found me in, the work that I do and so many different things. But I never, I'm going to be really honest, I read one book in high school. One book, pretty much my entire
I
life.
hope it was a good book.
It was a great book.
Awesome.
What
But-
was it?
Yeah.
What was it? Let's test your
I
memory.
think it was called The Awakening. It was like I think it was like my sophomore or junior year, but had zero interest in reading. Now I can't stop. I enjoy reading so much, and it's just something that I never had the attention span to be able to do. I wasn't able to focus. And so, yes, I was really strong in my processing speed and my visual processing, but all it really did was kind of level the playing field between all of the parts of your brain so that you're just a more functional human being on a day-to-day basis.
So with this assessment and everything, I mean, you kind of develop a plan specific to that person in all different categories.
Yes. So we, I'm trying to have the best way to describe this. So we have at our fingertips, we know what exercises exercise what cognitive skills. So we don't do one exercise per one cognitive skill. It's usually this exercise will exercise these 7 cognitive skills at the same time. So we typically see the strong ones get stronger, but what we're targeting is the weaker ones. And so we develop a plan. So for one person, we're really focused on auditory processing, auditory memory, short-term memory, where for another person, we might be focused on attention, processing speed. So we know what exercises exercise these cognitive skills. So we know in your plan, we're going to focus on these 6 skills today. Okay, so now on your second session, now we're going to focus. So we start intermixing them and going back and forth so that we are making sure we're hitting those as best as we possibly can.
Explain one of, and either of you can answer this, because I'm curious for Maddy specifically.
Yeah.
What were the one of the assessments or one of the skills that you practice? Is this something on a computer? Is it something you go out and do? Is it
In the assessment or in the training? Because it's 2 different things.
Yeah.
Okay,
The,
okay.
the assessment's like the pre-test, right?
Okay.
And that was like kind of felt like rapid fire at first because I didn't know what I didn't know at that point, right? And so she would have me like, there'd be like letters and lines, and she's like, find all the P's and the D's, and I'm like, great. And then after she would tell me, like before that, she would tell me a sentence, and then she'd ask me a question of like, Johnny went to the farm and had a red flashlight. So then I do the little assessment and circle all the P's and the D's and, without a doubt, mess it up. And then at the end of it, she's like, well, what color was the flashlight? And the first time taking this assessment, I was like, I couldn't tell you. I have no freaking idea, right?
Yeah.
But by the end of it, based on all of the other skills that I had attained through the program, I could better retain that information, because I had worked on my auditory processing and my working memory and my short-term memory, that it was like a light switch went off. It was insane.
How long of a process? How long were you doing this until it really just light bulb hit?
So, I mean, my entire program, and of course, there's it varies per
Right.
person based on where
Their specific needs.
their specific
yep.
needs and everything like that. My particular program was 8 months, but I would say that I started to see improvements just in my focus, my attention, and even just how I felt about completing tasks on a daily basis within a month of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty quick.
We typically tell people within about the first 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to start noticing little changes, and you'll start seeing bigger changes as you go further in the program. But usually within the first 6 to 8 weeks, we start hearing families say, oh, it only took my daughter 1 hour to get homework done versus 3 hours to get homework done. Or, oh my gosh, there was no meltdowns getting out the door. Or for adults, I mean, one of the things Maddy, I remember her texting me and she was like, I'm so excited. I sat through a 2-hour meeting with employees and didn't check out. I paid attention the whole time. And I think that was like 4 months into her program. And that was a huge deal for her to be able to pay attention for 2 hours in an employee meeting and not check out and understand what was being said. I mean, as a business owner, that was huge for you.
Yeah, I mean, my internal timer was about 45 minutes. And anything after 45 minutes, if it wasn't written down, it was gone. right? You know, and these meetings wouldn't happen all of the time, but it made a huge difference because not only could I be engaged in the meeting, I could recall what was going on in the meeting, those action items, things that needed to come out of that, you know. The grocery list got much easier to remember. I used to joke with Lindsay, if it's longer than 3 things, I need to write it down. And then the whole time, as I'm going through the grocery store, I'm like, pickles, bananas, pears, pickles, bananas, pears. And I'm just, because if not, I would forget. And so that's not something is, you know, prevalent now because I can remember those 3 things.
So to answer part of your question, when we're doing the brain scale assessment, part of it is you have to circle these things that match. You know, you got 2 minutes to do it. It is, I'm going to read you some sentences, I'm going to show you some pictures, and then I'm going to ask you questions about what you saw and what you heard. Or then it's, you're going to visually, you have to put these puzzles together and identify which piece goes where in the puzzle. There's also, we do show some pictures, like we'll show 4 or 5 pictures, and then there's a blank spot, and there's a choice of maybe 6 pictures below which goes in the blank spot. So I mean, we do a lot of different things. Where I really see people get hung up is when we start really saying, I'm going to give you a word, but one sound at a time. So like if I say st, up, you know, what is that word? You got to blend them together. People with auditory processing are going to be like, Sam. You know, they can't get it. But by the end of it, they're just like, bam, 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 bam. They're hitting them because they can now identify each phoneme and each sound to be able to blend the words together.
Okay.
Is this assessment something that people can do on your website, or is this something that they have to come in? That's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's some simple things that are some, a mini kind of let me ask you some questions, and that sort of gives them an idea of should there be a concern or should there not be a concern.
Right.
Not everybody who's come to me needs a program. I've had people who are worried about something, and it may be, well, really what you need is get a better night's sleep. You know, sleep deprivation actually causes the brain to shrink. And when we're sleep deprived, the brain doesn't go through the wash process that it should. And I remember one client specifically, I'm like, I really don't think you need our program. What I really think you need to do is find a way to get good quality sleep. And I touch base with that person every once in a while, like, how are we doing? So we really try to educate along the way because there are 7 components to protecting and maintaining cognitive health. Brain training is one of those.
What was through your training process?
Yeah.
What was one skill that really stood out to you that you felt like maybe made a difference for you personally? So,
As far as a skill that I worked on,
yeah.
or
through your 8 months, was there something that really was like, oh my gosh, that really helped me personally?
yeah, there was the made up words exercise. And so there's
nonsensical
the
words.
they call them nonsense words,
Like
and
Dr.
So,
Seuss.
yeah, basically.
amazing.
And it focuses not only on how you're sounding. I mean, at the very beginning, like we were even practicing how to correctly say vowels. Right. And so being able, if you can say that vowel sound and really practice that vowel sound, you can better identify that vowel sound as well. So we started with vowels, and then that turned into nonsense words of utilizing the combination of your consonants and your vowels to create particular sounds. And not only did I have to say those words, I also had to listen to those words and be able to identify those words. And so that was a big piece that really helped with the auditory processing. So as I'm sitting there, and instead of, is it a mat? Is it a cat? Is it a bat? What am I supposed to be grabbing? I can already clearly identify that word, and then I'm not getting lost in the process.
I love this. I do, because I have an almost 7-year-old, and the brain to me just is so fascinating at any age. But you look at a word, and we read Dr. Seuss because a lot are just made up and funny words, and it's to sound it out, and they rhyme, which is great. But even like past tense ed isn't always ed. Can sound like a T or, a P in some situations. So,
and thank you, English language. For
Yeah.
doing
it
that
is
for us.
such a pain in the tush. Why?
I'm just there, and there, and 2, 2, and 2.
We did it with son and son this morning, and he's like, why are they spelled differently? Because it's so hard for the brain to understand all of
Well, and the
different words.
challenge now, at least in Colorado, I won't speak for every state, but when I have families who come in, and let's say you're bringing your son in at 7 years old and he's behind, he's not at he must be first or second grade.
First, yeah.
Okay, so let's say he's not at a first grade reading level and he's on an IEP or a tutor or whatever. And my very first question to families are, how did they learn to read? Did they learn by sight words or did they learn by phonemes? Because our education system, not every school does this, but a lot of the education, they teach kids to read by sight words. So what they're doing is they're memorizing. They're memorizing the word the, they're memorizing it, and then they're streaming those together. The problem with that is that learning to read by sight words actually wires the brain incorrectly. Now, we can rewire the brain, but the average brain can memorize around 2,000 sight words. But give a kid a book that's 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 words long, like we get in high school and college, and they can't read it. So we learn to read up to third grade, and then beyond that, we're reading to learn. And then we start seeing people fall behind in their reading levels because they learn to read by sight words. So we go back and teach them the phonemes and learn how to blend those phonemes together. And reading is an auditory processing skill first before it's a visual.
Right.
So usually when I hear people, if I know their auditory processing is low, I'll say, well, do you read for fun? And usually the answer is like, no way, I do. I get away as far away from that as I possibly can. And then as we're strengthening that skill, then I usually hear, oh, I can't get enough reading. I love to read.
There was a reason I was really good at sports. Let's just say that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. Well, okay.
Well, it's amazing too. Maddy, you say a lot of it was probably sports, concussion type stuff, situations. And Kathi, she sent me an email a little while ago with all these different videos. I mean, there was a gentleman who was in a motorcycle crash and no helmet. There was stroke victims, stuff like that. And LearningRx was able to actually put the brain kind of back together. Sort of on that. I mean, it was amazing kind of the transformation on that. So it's not even just for regular learning.
For sure. I mean, there's such a huge spectrum of everything. I mean, your brain really controls most of everything that's going on, right? But my question was to go back to the rudimentary, what you said. So if our kiddos are learning in the very beginning incorrectly, why is my first question. So why don't we adopt something like LearningRx to be in every school across the nation?
Oh, I would love that. So would LearningRx, actually.
I know. Are you like going to individuals? Is this going into hospitals and into rehab centers, into senior centers and into schools? So you start with the correct foundation.
Right.
Wouldn't that help in the long term?
I would. So here's my personal answer. I mean, if LearningRx, if the corporate offices sit and listen to you, so they'd be like, oh yeah, sold. Let's get in every school out there. Because I came from senior living, I'd say let's get into senior living, right? If we had the opportunity to truly, when kids got into school, be able to say, let's just do a brain skill assessment first. Let's identify what do we need to focus on. Like, I use my daughter as an example. My daughter struggled. My youngest daughter struggled. We didn't know about LearningRx. We did so many, I paid for tutoring for 3 years. Maybe she got better on a test. Maybe she did better on a project, but she hated school. She had so many missing assignments. And I was the parent who's like, you're going to camp out on the couch with me all weekend. We're going to get you caught up, and okay, we're caught up. And 2 weeks later, we're back to 8 missing assignments again. And her auditory processing and her auditory memory and working memory were under the 10th percentile, but her visual processing and visual memory were in the 90th. So anything she saw, she remembered. Had I known that, I would have approached her education completely different. I would have talked to teachers about, okay, can we write down assignments for her? Like, can you hand her something, or email it to me and I'll make sure she sees it in written format, because what you're telling her she doesn't get, and that she's falling behind. Like, she had a teacher in school who said, I've said that 3 times, I'm not saying it again. Okay, well, now she doesn't want to ask another question in front of her schoolmates, right? Because she's embarrassed. And so I just think we do a lot of people a disadvantage when, if all you knew was the strength and weakness of the brain, you could approach just that piece, whether you did a LearningRx brain training program or not, just understanding that piece, you can approach education from a completely different perspective.
It's amazing even thinking how many grades out there just because we haven't learned and trained our brain correctly.
Well, and it's true. Again, I'm going to use my kiddo as an example. Every person has their own strengths and weaknesses across the board. And so, and you're all grouped together, all 17 or 300 of you, depending on what classroom or, school you're in. To your point, if you know how someone learns, because we all learn extremely differently.
Correct.
If you're visual or you need to write it down. And like, if my whole education would have been on a movie, I would have had a 4.0. Yeah. Would have remembered it, put Ferris Bueller in front of me, and I will remember every quote. It's truly something like this, I feel, should be in the education system. I would
love it to be there.
Difference.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely love it. And I have sat down with principals and I've sat down with teachers and counselors, and there's a lot of difference between a private school. We have a lot of great private schools in Colorado, one-on-one schools, and it's a difference between the public schools and what you can do. And I applaud teachers everywhere. I applaud anybody in the education system, because that was not my strength. If I was I'd have killed a kid. That was not my strength. It really, really wasn't. And so I have some really amazing teachers in my life I'm very thankful for. I have some friends who are amazing teachers, and God bless them, because they have to teach to a varied audience. And they can see in their own classroom the kids that get it and the kids that don't, but somehow they've got to be somewhere in between. So the kids who get it are bored, right? And the kids who don't continue to struggle. And as a teacher, if you've got 30 kids in front of you, how are you can't teach one-on-one. That's just not possible. And so I really feel for teachers who are trying to teach to a varied audience, and there's not one teacher out there that does not want a kid to struggle in their class. They want them to be successful. They don't want the kid to be bored here either. But where do I find that balance? So if parents knew, if teachers knew, the teachers I've sat down with who've listened to, okay, here's, Johnny's results, and here's what I've had teachers go, wow, this makes a whole lot of sense. Now I understand why I get this deer in the headlights look, or wow. I mean, principals have said it, but to try to say every school should have that, no, you're dealing with so many different layers of government and whatnot, from public schools to charter schools to private schools, that how do you, but I do think if LearningRx could get into one, like a large population that we work with is the homeschool environment. We have amazing homeschool families who they're trying to do their best as a parent, mom or dad, trying to homeschool kids. And so we've had a fair share of homeschool families who come in because they're not sure what the problem is. Why isn't my child getting it? I'm trying to explain this. And with one family, their daughter, 17 years old, they were so frustrated, and every cognitive skill she had, her highest one was the 37th percentile. Everything else was underneath that. So I was like, well, here's why. And they're like, wow, this girl, when she came in, she wouldn't even look at you. You barely could hear her talk. She by the time she graduated, was bouncing off the walls. This girl was a completely different child, from someone who said, I'll never go to college, to I can't wait to go and I'm going to conquer the world. Yeah. It's, that's priceless.
It's definitely true. Like the confidence that you feel in being able to complete one of the tasks that is in your program, right? Because some of them are timed, they're measured, like your success is measured, right? And it's, it's built in a building block. There's levels to, like, hey, we're going to start on level 1 and you finish at level 17, right? And you're like, holy crap, like I did that, So you get to build this confidence in yourself that you didn't know that you didn't have to begin with. And it creates those results of like, I'm going to go, take on the world. It's pretty cool.
You see people. I wish I could take a video of everybody the first day they came in, although I think that would be sort of weird to say, hey, can I just get a video of you real quick? Because you'll appreciate this when you finish. I promise you. Just trust me. But we don't, But if I could show them what they looked like day one, and I could show them what they looked like when they graduated, it is a night and day experience.
And I was going to actually ask that, Maddy. I mean, when you went through all of discovery to finally understanding what was going on and the transformation they had to take, I mean, how was that experience working with LearningRx?
It was amazing. I got to work with Kathi some, but I worked with, the individuals on her team, and they were gracious and understanding. When I first started, like, I would openly tell them, like, I'm getting frustrated with this particular task. And like, that's fine. Like, we're just going to move on to something, but we're going to come back to it. Right. And so, you know, and Lindsay, there's a couple of different ways that the program can be administered. So Lindsay helped with some of my training as well. And she would joke with Kathi that I was the worst student in the world because there were things that I'm like, I don't want to do that, you know? But having the opportunity to just the reflection is really the biggest piece of that, because you get to see where you came from, and it's changed how I do a lot of things, how organized I am, you know, different methodologies in the way that I work with my team, right? Like, not only am I saying it out loud, like I'm writing it and I'm making it referenceable for them, to, you know, so they can be successful. Because I'm not going to make them all take a brain assessment. But I can, you know, I could. You'd love that, right? But you know, it's making sure that we are being as adaptable as possible to every person that we employ and that we work with, and different things like that. So I mean, that's a really long-winded answer, but it, you know, it's I can't even some of the pieces of it I can't even put words to.
Oh, I love it. I want to make sure, for those that are just jumping on, we have Kathi Miracle, with owner of LearningRx. Again, if you are on your tablet or computer, or even your phone, if you're not driving, you can look it up. Go to learningrx.com/Highlands-Ranch, and the phone number is 303-955-2959. And we have Maddy Fauth, who is a former client here, with her testimony. I know you had a question. I had one too. We find this so fascinating. Sorry. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to.
No, and if you are watching, all that information is scrolling down the bottom so that you have it, and we'll try to state that a few more times during this interview. I find it fascinating. Mainly, I was in the financial world for 14 plus years. And so I had the pleasure of seeing even business owners retire, people who are working retire. And I saw kind of two different ways. People that kept busy, kept their mind busy, were out doing stuff. It was great. People who did not keep busy, they kind of got older pretty quick on that. And I have an uncle who just had his 90th birthday, and so sharp.
Yeah.
Absolutely sharp. It's absolutely amazing. And so that's why I love how LearningRx is all across the board. You said your oldest was over 100 years old?
Not but LearningRx is a
LearningRx
company.
is a
yeah,
company.
My personal student, my oldest student, has been 82.
Okay.
But LearningRx actually trained an individual who's 103.
That's just unbelievable. Do you have many adults that find you and take this assessment and do this, or is this primarily, what age range is probably your primary?
I think for our center in Highlands Ranch, we're a little bit of an anomaly for the company. So the company was really designed, the founder of the company is Dr. Ken Gibson. When he was growing up, he tested at a very high IQ, but he struggled to learn. So he never understood why someone so intelligent struggled to learn. Now, so he kind of made it his life mission, passion, that he didn't want other kids to struggle. So he would have been diagnosed with dyslexia. They just didn't diagnose that back in his day. He just turned 81 in September. He lives in Colorado Springs, an amazing gentleman. And so this program really started off to really help kids who struggled in school. That's really the basis of what LearningRx was.
To train them at a younger age.
To train them at a younger age,
Right.
to strengthen cognitive skills so that learning was easier, thinking was faster, and they didn't have to struggle in school, because he did, and he didn't want kids to struggle. So that's really where it started. I will say, when you look at other LearningRx centers, the average age for other centers are probably 12 or 13 years old. My center is a little bit different. My average age in my center is 31. So we have really, not that I won't work with kids. I will work with kids. We do work with kids. But I have just somehow attracted the adults who've had multiple concussions, who are worried about dementia in their family, who have had a traumatic brain injury. Somebody who's had a stroke. We have really just sort of become the center within LearningRx that we work with more adults than we work with students. So my average age is 31 at the Highlands Ranch Center.
Has there been evidence that LearningRx and the practices and everything could slow down the process of dementia?
We have so LearningRx actually opened their research department, I want to say around 2014. We have just over 40 peer-reviewed scientific studies. Mild cognitive decline is one of them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's when people ask me, does this program work? I'm like, well, what we do is scientifically backed. We're not just throwing something at a wall hoping it sticks.
Right.
We literally have, if you know the process of what it takes to get a peer-reviewed scientific paper published, it takes a lot, and we have over 40 of them. We have them on ADHD, dyslexia, brain trauma, mild cognitive impairment, so cognitive decline. So yes, it's the science behind it says it. What I tell people, because I've done this for so long, is there's no one thing that protects cognitive health. It is the combination of 7 components, which is nutrition, hydration, sleep, socialization, getting oxygenated blood to the brain, managing stress, and brain training. So there's 7 components that really, when you combine those 7 components, it just keeps cognitive skills strong. So research will show it can avoid a dementia diagnosis, it can delay it, and in certain circumstances, it can reverse cognitive decline. So it's not rocket science, but it's being consistent in those components to protect and maintain cognitive health.
It's funny you say that. I remember I overheard you one day and you were saying, well, if you like Sudoku, that's great, but that's like going to the gym and only working out your biceps.
Oh, yeah.
That one gave me a good laugh. So like to look at it as a full encompassing of taking care of yourself, I think that's a higher priority for people right now than anything else, is just making sure that not only are you not seeing a cognitive decline, but overall taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, taking care of your spirit, and taking care of your brain.
Well, and because I get asked, people will say, and I'll use that same analogy, like if I play Sudoku on my phone every day, am I exercising my brain? And my answer is yes and no. And I've had people say, well, my dad played crossword puzzles his whole life and he still got dementia. So that didn't work. I'm like, well, here's the challenge. If you went into a gym, and let's say you went in 5 days a week, and you went in, you did bicep curls and walked out, are you exercising your body? Yes and no. You're exercising your biceps, but you're doing nothing for anything else.
You look a little weird after a couple of years.
You would, absolutely.
Biceps.
So it's the
You
same
look like
thing,
Popeye.
is that when we're playing a game, we're exercising a part of the brain. We're not exercising the whole brain, which is what we want to do.
Right.
The other thing is we tend to gravitate to games that we're good at or we enjoy or we like. So really what you're doing is you're exercising the stronger part of your brain. You're not doing anything to the weaker. So the strong gets stronger, the weak gets weaker, and you still end up with some level of cognitive decline.
Yeah.
And so when someone takes this assessment, and that's where you really discover and know what areas to target. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. On average, is it usually more than one area that...
It depends. I have actually seen here not too long ago, I had a woman who she was very worried about her memory. Somebody who knew me got her in touch with me, and she came in for the assessment. And of all the cognitive skills, she had 2 underneath the 50th percentile. And I said, well, she was like, well, can I do anything about that? I go, you can. I go, we probably in about 10 weeks, we can have those both up above. But look how strong all these other ones are. And she kept focusing on these 2. And I go, but look at how strong these really are. Like your attention is strong. Your processing speed is strong, And she was so worried. She did not want dementia. She did not want to go down that road. It was very scary for her to feel like she couldn't remember things. And it just started panicking her. And so she'll probably come in and do a 10-week program. And we'll focus on those 2 skills and get them up over the 50th percentile. I've had people come in with 1 under the 50th percentile, and I'm like, let's talk about what's going on in your world. And we go through those 7 components. Like, talk to me about all these things first.
Right.
And what are you doing? And I've had like the 17-year-old, every cognitive skill was under the 37th. Her highest one was 37th percentile. Everything else was 1, 2, 5, 10. I'm like, well, here's why and she was 17. Here's why you're struggling.
Yeah.
So everybody is just like, I get to know people because I want to know, Or have you been in sports? Like, how many concussions have you had? Do you ride a motorcycle without a helmet? Are you slip and fall kind of person? Okay, how many strokes have you had? And when was your last one? I mean, we do a lot of deep diving to try to understand the reason behind why someone may be experiencing what they're experiencing.
Yeah. Well, I know we've hit on education in the school system. So in my other life, I work with kiddos that have brain cancer. So I am curious if you have done anything like this with something like that, with someone who suffered from
Not specifically brain cancer.
Okay.
I do have a gentleman who went through a program. He, I don't remember the type of cancer he had, but he was super frustrated over what was going on with his brain. He was 72 when he contacted us, and he went through a program, and it was night and day for him. I mean, he talked to me very succinctly about what he had to do, and he still was working, and the things he had to be responsible for in his job, he's like, things are just falling through the cracks, and I can't afford for that to happen. And so he was somebody who, after cancer treatment, was super frustrated over how he felt, and he had very positive results from the program. And so every person is slightly different. Like, if somebody's had a traumatic brain injury, I really want them to be medically released before they come to us, because if the brain is still swelling or they're still having complications from the head injury, don't come see me. I really need you to be beyond that. And that's usually can be anywhere from 12 to 24 months before they're released, depending on the severity or where the brain training has happened. Same thing with stroke. How long ago was the stroke, and what part of the brain, and how big was it, and what is the problems? Because maybe I can step in sooner, or maybe it's like we need to wait for the brain to settle down first before we go in and do anything.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that.
You definitely like feel it. Like, I remember, you asked how long it was taking for me to, see results or experience results. I remember the first 2 or 3 sessions, like, I would just come out of there and I was ready to take a nap. So, like, you're doing real work, and you're building up the own stamina in your brain to be able to, rebuild pathways and make sure that you're, doing what you need to do. And so it definitely, it's a workout for your mind, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm curious after that. I mean, you've mentioned frustration and struggling a lot, which no one likes frustration and struggling on that. But I'm curious if there's, I mean, there has to be a correlation, and maybe you can speak on this, between a lack of stress and a lack of depression and actually feeling better after getting your brain working better.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. One of the things that they talk about when they look at the NFL and individuals that struggle with the things like CTE and traumatic brain injuries, like, mood changes and different, cognitive changes are relevant there. And that was definitely something that I experienced as well. Like, my overall mood had improved. I think it's a little column A, column B for me, feeling empowered by the things I was actually getting done, and like feeling that productivity, seeing those things being crossed off the list, as well as the impact of being able to have the natural side of that of my brain, doing some of the work in rebuilding those skills, or building skills that I never had, right? What I struggled with in school, right? Versus me knocking my noggin too many times. It's probably a little bit of both, but the outcome of the program had a huge impact on that as well.
Well, and I'll also say, because I think a lot of times people think that this is only for kids who struggle in school, or people who've had head injuries. And we've had kids go through this program because they want a higher SAT or ACT, score to get into a better college, or they want a better scholarship, And so it's not just people who struggle. I will also say, from an athletic standpoint, you get better performance on the field. When we were starting to look at LearningRx, I remember a family who talked about their son who was 12 years old. And if you ask mom and dad how LearningRx helped him, he went from D's and F's to A's and B's. He became a better student. If you want to ask him, the 12-year-old, what LearningRx did for him, he said, I became a better hockey player because I could process the puck on the ice better and faster and defend the goal better. And that year my team went to the championship. So when we talk about athletes on the field, think about one, like let's just talk about football players. How many concussions do you think a football player gets, or a hockey player? And in all honesty, soccer players get more concussions than football players because they don't wear helmets. They play more games during a season. But even baseball players, my youngest son is a catcher. The ability that you have to watch, a player is running from first to still second, and you have to be able to catch that ball, pop up, and get that down there. I mean, when we talk about what happens on performance on the field, there is huge advantages to the brain working the way it should be to have different performance on the field.
Are you also running labs while you're doing this? Are you checking like on a medical world? No. Okay.
We don't do
Okay.
anything. We don't diagnose anything. We don't check labs. If the individual wants to partake in that and they want to be doing that at the same time, I would be happy. I would love to work with an audiologist or a doctor or a holistic person to say, well, what did they look like here? And then what did they look like here? Even from an athleticism, I mean, we've been, I know that our center back in Indiana, they had Indianapolis Colts go through the program in off season, because of the amount of concussions they got. I would love for the Denver Broncos to be like, hey, we want a better performer on the field, or the Avalanche or the Rockies.
All right,
I'm like,
Sean,
we could
Sean
probably.
Payton, Bo Nix,
Are you
Mr.
listening?
Moss, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's even for athletes at a high school level. A student who went through a LearningRx program because he struggled in school ended up getting a lacrosse scholarship because of his performance on the field. So we know that it's not just about the classroom. It's not just about work performance, but for people who are serious athletes, it can change their performance on the field too.
For sure. I had one other question that I've been thinking about. It sounds like, of course, you work with individuals one-on-one. That sounds like that's definitely your primary. Do you ever go into bigger groups? Can you?
No.
Okay.
We don't. And we've been asked that several times. The magic behind what we do is really focusing on the person I'm sitting in front of me. Because if I go in and I have 10 people sitting in front of me, your cognitive skills are going to be different than your cognitive skills and yours. So what do I focus on for anybody?
You have the same challenge that all of our teachers have.
Yeah,
Then.
exactly.
True, but
That's
even,
exactly
even
becomes
like
it.
couples. Like I was thinking, you could be like, okay, well, this is why there's a breakdown of communication, or
Well,
like,
we sort of had that conversation.
right?
Well, but that's the exact.
We actually
Kathy was
with
really
who's-
nice, and she stroked both mine and Lindsay's ego at the same time.
we had that conversation.
This is why,
Told you it was your brain.
I think what I said was, at home, do you both say huh a lot? Like when you're talking, are you both going huh, huh, huh? And they're like, yeah.
just throwing that out there. It could be something great for couples.
There's a niche holiday market for you. Does your significant other say huh too much?
Yeah. You may need us. Yeah.
Exactly.
It may not be the hearing.
It may not be
That's
the
right.
It's no longer selective hearing. Yes. No, I love this. There's so many different facets that this can be applicable to. I mean, really any age completely. And I wish that I love that I know about this because I have a 6-year-old and it's already, because they start the testing already now. It's like, okay, where is he excelling and where is he not? But to have an actual assessment to say, okay, now what are the skills that he really needs to be working on, right? Because you can see at a young age where things are already starting to go sideways. And I love that you mentioned, I'm going to bring this up to Ethan's teacher. She's amazing. But when you have 17 kids, it is so hard. I'm gonna be like, maybe this is just another tool or another resource that schools and teachers and homeschool, and if you're an owner, I mean, everything that you have said, I struggle with completely. If I have more than 3 things and it's not written down, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. It will go out of my brain. And I remember, I meet a lot of people. I don't remember everyone's name. I do. I feel that saturation point. I love that you said it 45 minutes.
Yeah, like that was the cutoff.
Mine's lower than that for sure. Like, especially in an employee meeting, I'm like, okay, it's been 10 minutes. Like, what did you say?
Yeah.
But I love, we're all at different levels.
Absolutely.
So this is really fascinating to me. The brain is an amazing creature.
Absolutely amazing. That's why I can tell that it's not only academics, it's the way you see the world, your work life, sports life, everything like that. I'm curious, I know we're running out of time, but I know a lot of the work was done at LearningRx, and that's where you kind of get the tools. And I take it part of this is also work that you do at home. by yourself as well.
Yeah. So when I did my assessment, we essentially got a multitude of different options, right? There was the we're going to do all of the one-on-one training here in the in the office with their coach and everything like that. And then there was kind of a hybrid program that we decided to take advantage of. So I went in once a week, but then there was essentially, we carved out 2 other days during the week where we did assessments and training, or not assessments, but we did tasks at home, right? And so if I didn't do my homework, I very certainly, outed myself on that 1 week appointment. So there's, and Kathi can speak to this a little bit more, but there's a multitude of ways to be able to do the program. And being a business owner, having a fast-paced life, having a team, I needed something that I could create flexibility with. So sometimes I would get up and I would do my tasks in the morning. Sometimes I would do them in the evening. Sometimes I would do them before I went in, because it was just the craziness of life. So there's flexibility that you can have built into this program where, there's so many have-tos that we have in our lives that really make it feasible to be able to see that improvements overall.
Are there still exercises that you do?
Well, I don't know if this is technically a LearningRx one, but we started it on a road trip. We took our niece on a road trip, and it was talking about grandma's chest. And so, and like a chest.
Treasure chest.
Yeah, like a treasure chest.
I was hoping. Yeah.
Yes. This is strictly PG, I promise. But so I would start and I would say, in grandma's treasure chest, I have an apple. And then Kathi would say something with a B, like banana. And then it would go around, and I would have to remember every single thing that was in that chest from A to Z. And I can do it. And so it's like, okay, well, there's, a pineapple, a cucumber, there's this all the way down the line. And so being able to have that working memory is really impressive. That was one of my favorites. We also got to play it with our niece on a road trip. So, driving, family time,
that's
all
not
the
a
things.
LearningRx.
I was going to say, technically that one's not LearningRx, but you did give that one to me.
I can sort of create ones.
Yeah.
But to answer part of your question, we can do training face-to-face in the center. We are capable of doing the training virtually, which makes it really accommodating for someone who might live in Aurora or Evergreen or Thornton or something like that. They can't get to the center. We really recommend 3 times a week. So what Maddy's talking about too is, if LearningRx does all the training, it's one price. If we do part of the training and the family does part of the training, then the price comes down. So we work really hard to fit it into people's budgets as well as fit it into their schedules. So that's why we offer the different options. So for some people, they may have no homework at all at home. For some people, they may be given some of it, but it's really about families engaging in it. I mean, the most popular program we have is when families are doing it once a week and we're doing it twice a week, because families are very engaged in the process then. And I just have to say, during this 1 hour, you can't be mom or dad, you're the trainer. So you can't say, did you take out the trash? You got to focus on training. So, and the kids are going, yeah, right. So we do a lot of supporting and coaching along the way.
Awesome. I love this. Okay. Can people really multitask?
Multitask is, that's a really great question. I used to say, my answer used to be yes. My answer used to be yes. I'm actually going to sort of out Maddy here just a little minute. Because, because I think once I say it, she'll know exactly what I'm saying, is when we multitask, we actually slow ourselves down. And in her final assessment, I did both of her beginning and her final assessment. In one part of her assessment, she literally talked all the way through it. And I was thinking, oh, please be quiet. Please.
That tracks.
It actually showed in her final results. I was like, when we were going over it, I go, okay, this is the one you talked all the way through. What we find out though is when people multitask, they're not as productive. It actually slows them down, and they think they're more productive, but if you really dug down into it, they're really not. So people can multitask, but the reality is it probably slows them down.
I appreciate that.
One thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
Well, yes, I love to multitask, and it's terrible.
Yeah,
it's so hard to try and I
think some
find
of the
so
world
split.
that we're in though at this point, like everybody's multitasking everywhere.
Yeah.
You're driving, you're, adjusting the radio, you're on your phone and you're looking at it. Like, it's so much of what the world is now. And so having, the mental fortitude to really focus on one thing, I feel like you need to add another column to your to your assessment. It's a skill for sure.
Yeah, but I like it. So I like right now, like you guys are getting 100% of my attention.
Yeah.
If I had a movie going and I was trying to cook something, I would be kind of in and out, right? Like it's not that full attention. And so the quality I think goes down when you're trying to do maybe bigger projects or really try and focus and pay attention in multiple ways. To your point, yes, we multitask all the time.
Yeah.
But I think for the bigger projects,
Right.
so I was like, oh, I'm multitasking. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of half-assed it, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, you're not really as efficient or as effective or the quality, because from an efficiency standpoint, a lot of times if you're multitasking, you start something, you go over here. When you come back to this, you don't necessarily pick up where you left off. You kind of go back and go, oh, yeah, and then pick up, right?
Yeah.
So it's really not efficient. It really isn't. And the quality of what you produce probably isn't unless if you focused on one thing the whole time, you'd get a lot more done than if you think you're multitasking. You don't.
Well, I think at that point you're compromising time or you're compromising quality, right? Like if you were to go back right to where you were and be exactly where you were, you would have to review everything that you've done previously, and then you're compromising time at that point. So, you